All right, what is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here, and we're going to jump into another GSD interview. You guys, today's interview is an epic, badass interview that you absolutely do not want to miss. Our guest today that we're having on the podcast, a good friend of mine. I've known her for a lot of years. I've known her husband for a lot of years. They are doing some epic, amazing things. She's one of the best people that I have found to go out there and identify amazing top tier talent, how to interview, how to go out there and identify these skill sets, develop that right culture, get your people producing at the highest level. She's went out there in one single year with zero real estate experience, never selling a house, went into a top real estate team and started running the team, leading the team, stepped in as a team leader, again, without selling a house, and increased that team's production by $50 million or over $50 million in 12 months, one single year, right? Just insane stuff. So definitely going to want to get out that pen, paper, take notes. Real quick before we jump in the interview, I want to plug our sponsors that make this whole entire podcast possible. So our first sponsor is perfectstormnow.com. For any of you agents out there that are individual agents, team leaders that are looking for an extremely effective, extremely affordable website lead generation and CRM platform, man, this system is a juggernaut. It is how I'm going out there and generating $1, $2 Facebook leads, getting massive ROIs on those, and then the CRM to work those leads. Leads aren't our main issue. It's converting those leads into appointments that is most real estate agents' main issue. So I've custom written personally every single script, every single drip system, what you need to say, if they don't answer, what the voicemails that you leave. There's 1,000-day follow-up protocols in there. So definitely check us out, perfectstormnow.com. If you're listening to this podcast and you want to jump in there and take advantage of that, enter promo code MASTERY PSN. So all caps, all together, all one word, MASTERY PSN, and that'll waive the enrollment fee, waive the $200 registration fee, and get you the whole entire program on a month-to-month basis. So save you some money and hook you up. And that way, if you don't like it, right, it's month-to-month and you're not tied to a contract. Also, my 90-day mastery bootcamp. That's my personal mentorship program where I spend 4 total months, 3 months of live training and coaching, where you have daily access to me for 4 straight months to ask me anything. And I go in depth. Plus, during that process, I'm teaching you and I'm giving you everything that I do inside my business, where now we're selling over 2 homes every single day in my real estate team. And I show you everything that we've done to build that. So from whether you're a brand new agent, individual agent that's at producing, that's wanting to take your business to the next level and eventually start a team leader that wants to systematize your business so then that you can be like me, where you step out of production and you have a system that's operating, running itself, that gives back to you and pays you. And then you can go out there and live life, enjoy life, and focus on other things. This program is absolutely for you. So 90daymastery.com, www.90daymastery.com. Enter promo code LIVE MASTERY, all caps, all one word, all together. On there, you can see tons of video testimonials. We have hundreds of 5-star reviews. You can see a demo on there of how the whole program operates and works. Make sure to jump in there because it's a life-changing program. Also, we just released our REO University. So you guys, if you look at what's going on, at least at the time of creating this, if you're watching this years down the road, maybe we're already there. But with the state of the economy, you've got record high real estate prices, record high stock market prices, and we really have a false strong economy. There's 900,000 less jobs today than the start of the last recession. True unemployment today is 22.9% here in America. 40% of Americans have student loan debt. 50% have medical debt. The median middle class income is dropping at record highs. Look, it's inevitable. It's never an if the market is going to correct and crash. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen. And it's kind of setting up those perfect that perfect situation where a correction is overdue, right? So I teamed up with Ben Barber, who is the most brilliant mind I've I've ever seen in REO. So we combined all of his knowledge, all of his skill set, plus all of my years of representing, working with over 35 banks and selling thousands of REOs personally. We've created a 22 module program that teaches you everything that you need to know of how to get into REO, but then how to have massive success with your REO accounts as you land those accounts, as well as how to go out there and build out your systems, build out your team as you expand in that. So check us out, REOMasteryUniversity.com, www.REOMasteryUniversity.com. That is a product that you can go purchase right now. Unlike my boot camp, you can purchase it right now, but those are live. This program is a digital program, 22 modules. You have access right now. We also have a private Facebook group for a limited time that's free, where you get access to myself and Ben to ask any REO specific questions to help you in there. So go check that out. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for watching, and let's jump on into the interview we have going on today. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD mode interview. Every single week, we interview top entrepreneurs and just strip top badasses that are out there dominant in their space, that are choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create a big, amazing, epic life for themselves, for their families, as well as have a big impact on others. And today, you guys, we got a guest that's absolutely out there dominating, absolutely out there kicking ass, doing some big things. So our guest today, you guys, she has in 1 year, operating a real estate team. She grew that team over $50 million in production by being the general manager and the leader of that team. And then since has transitioned into the talent acquisition director at Remine. So this is a software company we'll talk a lot about. There's over 50,000 clients already for the real estate space. And she's out there just developing massive, amazing sales teams. So she's just brilliant at going out there and finding talent and creating teams and getting those rapid production increases, if you will, inside your business. So really stoked and honored to have my friend Ariana Pareja on the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joshua. I'm a big fan. You know this.
Yeah, it means a lot. It's awesome having you on. It's been a little while since we've talked, and I know we have had your husband on the show, and I've known you guys for a long time. And man, you guys are just, every time I talk to you, it's like you've 10x'd everything you guys are doing and just doing some epic things. And it's always so amazing and impressive. So I'm so stoked to have you on. Before we get into what you're doing today, I'm really intrigued in your journey of kind of what led you into the real estate space. And then I want to go really deep into, 12 months. You took a real estate team that was already, it was successful, right? But they were stuck, right? They were stuck at that, 70, 80 million production for a lot of years. And you took them in 12 months with a $50 million jump in production, which is almost unheard of, right? So I really want to go deep in that. But first, let's just talk about your journey of really what led you into the real estate space in the first place.
Yeah, so I actually joined the real estate industry when I was 18 years old. I started off as an EA to the CEO of a mortgage company. And at that time, I was just, doing whatever, getting the coffee, learning everything I could about the business, networking a lot, getting to know all of our vendors. One of our vendors was a title company, and they recruited me over to be a salesperson. Now, that was the first time I'd ever been exposed to commissions and the kind of wealth you can create when there's no cap on that. So I was 19 years old. I was doing well. I had two reps underneath me, and I had an expense account and a company card, and I was just like, wow, I made it. This is awesome. I'm amazing. And then, of course, the market crashed, and I realized, oh, I'm not that special. I was just in the right place at the right time. And so I was still pretty young. I was in my early 20s, and that's when Leo and I had gotten engaged, and I decided to get into event management. So I went to the George Washington University event management program. From there, I was recruited to be the event coordinator for the Department of Defense Office of Small Business Programs. And that's where I really, really learned how to manage and deal with people. I was coordinating events that were nationwide that attracted up to 1,200 attendees, dealing with budgets of $1 million, dealing with the private sector, the public sector, And I've made a lot of great contacts along the way. I decided to go out solo, and I started my own event management company. I had 4 internal staff members and 25 seasonal event members. And over the course of 9 years, coordinated hundreds of different events, from nonprofit fundraisers, lifestyle events, to industry trade shows and conferences. And I had an aha moment with my daughter when she was 2.5 months old. I had an event where I was gone from like 4 days, and I was working 18 hours a day. And I realized, oh my gosh, this industry is just, there's not enough money in it. If I'm going to be away from my family, I need to be making as much money as possible. Around that same time, this was November 2015, Remine was born. And you'll hear about Remine. It's coming to an MLS near you. And Leo wanted to shut down his team. He's like, look, I've been in and out, and I haven't really been focusing on it. I need to focus 100% on Remine. And I was looking for a change. It was time for something new. And I decided, hey, how about I come in as the general manager, I run the sales team, and let's see what happens. And that's what brought me back for full circle to leaders, to the Realtor Pareja team, to real estate. And under my leadership, the previous year, we were at 78 million, and I brought up the sales to 125 million, which was the largest in the team's history. And then we sold it to Compass in January of this year. And so now I'm over here at Remine helping build out the sales team. But that's a little bit about me and what my role was at the Realtor Pareja team.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. So it's such amazing stuff. So when what's really cool about this is, you've had so much experience in sales and, like you said, putting on these events and finding talented people. But I think a lot of people that are growing the real estate team, like they don't, because you didn't come from a massive real estate background, meaning you weren't a high producing agent. And one of the hardest lessons that I learned or had to learn is my ability of being a great realtor was absolutely irrelevant of my ability of being a great team leader, right? And I don't think people quite grasp that. So I really want to go deep in this because, again, a 50 million jump in a 12-month period, and also from somebody that again, kind of jumped into a different space, right? So, and
I had never sold a house before, right?
Yeah,
so you can do it too.
Yeah, no, I love it, right? So I mean, walk us through kind of, I know that this would
what
be
I did differently,
a week-long process of an interview to go super deep, but walk us through kind of like when you started that, like what did you identify, what was working well, what wasn't working well, and what to focus on to take it to that massive of a level of a jump.
Absolutely. So when I came on board in 2015, our profit margin was about 24%. We did 1.6 in GCI, and it was by any means it was a great team, right? And Leo did a really good job at setting up all of these multi-transactional clients. So we had predominantly we were a listing business. We listed for small home builders and also for wholesalers. And we had a team of 5 agents. 3 of them were working. The other 2 were kind of just floating. And what I saw first and foremost was, how come we're not going after everyone's SOI? Number 1. Number 2, we're not holding anyone accountable. And number 3, like we had all these great lead sources, right? But like nobody was doing anything with it. We had every single agent had 25 leads per month, and we had broken it down by 15 were internet leads, 5 were from In-House Realty, which is a sister company to Quicken Loans. They referred us about 5 leads per month per agent. And then we also had, like at any given time, we had 200 listings on the market, and we had all these sign calls coming in and nobody answering the phone. We didn't have a dedicated ISA. We didn't have a dedicated system for when somebody calls in what to say and how to move that process forward. So that was the first thing I noticed. And I thought to myself, okay, the best way that I can maximize my time here is to just hold everybody accountable. So first things first, I came in, I created a minimum standards agreement, and that was an agreement between the agents and myself. And if they did not adhere to those agreements, they were not a good fit for our team anymore. And what was on that agreement was that everyone had to do 2 deals per month, a minimum of 2 open houses per month, had to return all phone calls, emails, text, Facebook message, anything and that had to do with communication had to be responded to within 24 hours, whether it was from me, a lead, another team member, a transaction coordinator, a lender, anybody. 24 hours response return time. And that was pretty much it. And then we had a three times a week, we had a meeting, sales meeting that ran about 30 minutes. So Monday was a recap of what happened over the weekend. Wednesday was motivational Wednesdays, where we watched Tony Robbins, or we would revisit our 90-day goals, or we would have guest speakers such as like yourself to be at our team meeting to motivate, inspire, and hold each other accountable. And then Friday was scripts and dialogues. So we were meeting more often, we were practicing more often, and we were really honing in on every single lead. I had a conversion rate, kind of like a report card that I put together at the end of every month, and I would share it with everybody in the room, like, okay, this person, you got a 30% conversion rate. What's up with that? You know, or this person, you've got a 10% conversion rate. And for those that had a conversion rate jump the next month would get special milestones. Like I would send them to a Tony Robbins event in person, or I would pay for their conference registration to like a KW conference, for example. So that was kind of the nuts and bolts of it. It was really holding people accountable. That was like my one and only sole job, was to hold people accountable to create more opportunities for us.
Yeah, love it, love it. So then when it comes to that, there's really two things that come to my mind of, okay, so you put in some of these policies. How do you inspect what you expect? Like to ensure that they're returning every text or every email or every lead, how what was that inspection process like to hold them accountable with that? And let's kind of hit that first before I get into the second topic.
Yeah, well, it was a lengthy process. I mean, if you are not updating your boomtown, then it's an obvious, right, that you're not getting back to these people. If I emailed you a lead on Monday and by Wednesday you don't give me an update, I'm going to email you and say, okay, what happened to that call in that I gave you that lead? What's the status? So it was just constant checking up. I mean, that was, again, I wasn't selling, so that was my one and only sole thing, was to constantly keep people accountable.
Yeah. Well, what's cool about that, and I don't know if you got to this point, but once you set that up, I mean, that's those accountability check-ins. I mean, that's so easily delegated to, a $15 hour an assistant, right? I mean, those check-ins, those checkpoints, all of that. So something that is very delegatable and scalable. So love it. Then from there, I mean, when it comes to, it can be tough when team leaders, and a lot of team leaders hate making changes because it's tough to get the buy-in, right? So you went from everybody just kind of doing whatever they wanted, no accountability, like it's just a free-for-all, whatever, to now night and day, 3 times a week meetings, massive accountability. How did you get that buy-in, or was it?
Oh, it was hard. I mean, one of my guys, I asked him to fill out the minimum standards agreement. He literally threw it at me and walked out. So it wasn't easy. It definitely did not happen overnight. But I think everyone saw the value in it, and everybody was at that point where they're like, you know what? Yes, I want to do more than I did last year. And if you're going to help me get there, I'm going to trust you. And within 90 days, people, and they're like, I'm going to listen to what she has to say. So it's one of those things that happen organically over time.
Yeah. For just
don't give up.
Yeah. Well, and then too, I think that team leaders or whoever, company owner, it's like, yeah, buy-in's important, but the most important thing is compliance, right? And yeah, I mean, there might be some loss, but there's no shortage of great talent out there. You can always find the right people after the fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So you're ratcheting that accountability. You're doing that. And I love that, because it was just like, hey, what is the one thing that I can have the biggest impact? You didn't go in there and try to do 12 things, right? It's just like that. What's that one focus I can focus on, and boom, 50 million, I'm sure, like you said, it took a long time and took a lot of work and focus. But then from there, I'm really interested in, we're starting to hear the successful sales of real estate teams, and you know, you don't have to disclose everything if you don't want to. I mean, you can disclose what you're comfortable disclosing, you know, but for those that are team leaders that do want to create an asset to sell, because a lot of people think, oh, the only way I have an asset to sell is to go out there and create a brokerage. But now again, we're seeing a lot of these very successful teams be out there to go out there and sell. I mean, what did you guys do to be able to go out there and create that? Did it really boil down to creating that system that anybody could step into and take over? Or what advice would you give now doing it to team leaders so they could have that same success and have an asset to sell at the end of the day?
Absolutely. I'd have a solid book of repeat business for starters. That's always attractive when you're trying to sell a team, is that you know exactly how many homes you're going to list the following year and the following year after that. Two, you do need some systems and processes in place. So I had created like a process manual for pretty much everything, for when we're hiring somebody, for our ISA, for our transaction coordinator, so that if anybody was to be hit by a bus, the next day we could bring in a completely new person and they could take over that role. So I had a binder about like this thick of every single role in the company, what the runner does, how often they should be doing inspections on the houses, what their route is like, very detailed. And I think if you have that, especially with all of your scripts and your listing presentation, all of that documented, the more you have documented and the more repeat business you have booked, that will help. It also helps to have your marketing and branding on point as well. We had so since I was in the event planning business, I had a very good relationship with a videographer that literally every single home that we put on the market, we had a high quality HD video created within 24 hours of when it was listed onto the market. And he gave me a bulk wholesale pricing for that was extremely affordable. So when we sold our team, he came along with that contractor. And then what else? I guess that's the nuts and bolts of it. Is one, have systems and process documented, and two, have a solid book of business, and three, have a nice pretty package of marketing it all when you're trying to sell it.
Yeah. Now that you've went through that, you know, right? You know, those were the few things that allowed it to be very successful with the sale. But if you could do it over again, what were some maybe things that you would have done differently that you think would have helped maybe sell it faster or higher valuation or whatever?
That's a good question. What would I have done differently for a higher valuation? Honestly, I can't think of something that I would have done differently. Maybe if we had held out for another year or two and brought our sales up a little bit higher than 1.125, then maybe that could have sold for a little bit more. But honestly, it was the timing for us. It just happened to be at the right time for us, especially with what we had going on with Remine. So I don't think I could have necessarily ran the team for another couple of years.
Yeah. So just one last question on that. You know, because I get asked this all the time between the podcast and my bootcamp clients of when they're naming their team, you know, like for example, forever, my team was the Joshua Smith Real Estate Group. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, I transitioned and took my name, removed my name away from it and went to a company name for the team. But that's because, you know, I mean, I also have a vision of eventually expanding into our own brokerage and doing other things. But what recommendation would you give there when it comes to naming? I mean, is it more lucrative if it's not tied to the team leader's name?
You know, I think it depends on the team leader, because I've heard from other teams that they have problems retaining talent because of egos, right? They're like, well, I don't want to work for the so-and-so because that's not my name, et cetera, et cetera. But but we use Leo's name as leverage for recruiting all the time. So it really just depends on the team lead. But I guess some of the best team names I've seen, they use like the last name and say property. So like Pareja Properties or something like that might be a little bit better than just saying Leo Pareja Team. You know what I mean? So I guess I don't think our name had anything to do with the sell of the company, regardless of, I don't think it made a difference in terms of when we sold it, the price. We could have been named ABC or Leo Pareja Team. I don't think it would have made a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So really then it sounds like it really just boiled down to, like you said, I mean, you had your operations manual, your
Yeah.
processes and systems just dialed. And so like you said, if somebody gets hit by a bus, it's not reliant on a person, right? It's reliant on the, just the people following these proven systems and processes, and they're going to guarantee to get X result.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, love it. All right, so then, okay, so you guys transition out of that, and then you jump into Remine, and I know Remine's been, you guys have been working on this for a long time, but as far as being available to the marketplace, I mean, it's only been like the last year, right? I mean, it's...
Yeah, so it's actually a really pretty cool story. So what happened was this product was literally built out of frustration. Leo and our COO, Jonathan Spinetto, were looking for data, and they weren't getting enough data from our MRIS, from our MLS, and they basically called around to CoreLogic and Black Knight, and they said, I need public record data for the 7 counties that we were servicing. And they were like, yeah, sure, we'll give you all that record data, but it's going to cost you $300,000 and $30K a month to update. And so Jonathan Spinetto kept looking around, and he found out that Resly, which is owned by Zillow, had an open beta for API data, for public record data. And the only way to access it was if you won the 24-hour Zillow hackathon. So Jonathan and 2 of our programmers went down to the Zillow offices in San Francisco. They actually won the hackathon, not because we were the best technologists in the room, but because we understood real estate, right? And the panel of judges that were on this hackathon was the former CEO of Realogy, Alex Perillo, Errol Samuelson from Zillow, and other MLS figureheads. And we won. We came back, built a proper prototype. Leo immediately showed it to Keller Williams, Century 21, Berkshire Hathaway. They all had the exact same response, which was, how do I get this for me, for my brand, and I want exclusively? And the more we thought about it, we're like, okay, what's the best way to commercialize this product? How are we going to deploy this into the marketplace? And the thought was, how about we just only deploy this if your MLS adapts it. And, I think the industry is getting a lot of heat right now, especially with, your open doors and iBuyer and Zillow offers. This product is the type of product that is going to help realtors. I think that the companies that are out there that are spending this kind of money on data are not friends of the industry. And we strongly believe that Remine is going to protect the real estate agent over the next 10 years in providing more data back into the realtor's hands than Zillow and Redfin are putting in the consumer's hands. So that happened in 2015. We're now at 50 employees. We have 8 people on our sales team. I need to find 30 more before the end of Q1. We have gone live in Alaska. We're going live in El Paso next week, and then Dallas, Michigan, Miami, Bright MLS, which covers southern Jersey to middle of Virginia, all before the end of the year. So we're extremely busy. But what Remine does, it provides a database, a platform through your MLS. So you get to see all the public record data mixed with consumer files. We've purchased 151 million parcels in the United States. Of those 151 million parcels, 90 million are residential. And we're tracking 400 data sets per household. So 200 attributes of like the square footage, lot size, bedroom, bathroom count. The other 200 data sets that we're tracking are the consumer files. Are they married? Do they have kids? Are they registered for a baby? Et cetera, et cetera. The actual consumer behavior files of their purchases. So with all of that data, our data scientists are able to create like algorithms to decide when someone will have the propensity to sell next. So that's kind of an overall of what Remine is, but there's a lot of other functions as well. It's a property intelligence platform, so you can see back 20 years on title. It's a great tool for all realtors to use, and again, it's paid for by your MLS dues. So you'll be seeing it soon.
Yeah, love it. So it's because like you said earlier, you had like Keller Williams that was like, hey, we want this and we want exclusivity. You guys decided not to go that route, to go and figure out a way where it'd be available to all agents to benefit from. So you like you said, you're tying in with the MLS system, and it's awesome that it's part of the dues, right? So and I totally agree with you in it's like, how do we go out there and combat these juggernauts like Zillow and these other things? It's learning to be able to fish for ourselves. We've got to learn to not ever be reliant on these third parties, if you will, to go out there and generate leads. And your software allows people to go out there and prospect at a higher level and go out there and fish for themselves. So with all that data, so I mean, when just to give an agent an idea of when they log into their MLS, I get the whole, all the data points for efficiency, where it's like, hey, everything's in one central place. You can get all the data much quicker and have all of that. But as far as the algorithms, that sounds like they almost create like some type of a heat map where it's like, hey, this area, these people have the highest likelihood of wanting to sell. Like, we know what the average American is moving every 5 years or whatever, right? So it can identify that, so you know to hit them up and reach out to them. What does that look like from an agent side when I log into the system or with my MLS? Like, how would that be able to look, and how would I be able to use that to prospect?
Absolutely. So it's a single user sign-on. So it lives in the MLS. There'll be a little tab that says Remine. You could just click on Remine. You could search a property. It's a Google Map interface. You can see a whole entire neighborhood. And when you click on Sell Score, for example, you'll see the different homes light up in a different color, like a color legend of 0 to 6 months, 7 to 12 months, and so forth. Because we are integrated with the MLS, you can actually go back 10 years history and see all of your past clients, whether you're on the buy side or the listing side, and you can now see whether or not they have the propensity to sell. So it's a very, very really cool tool when you're prospecting. It's just smarter prospecting. You'll know who to call first. There's a lot of other features as well. You can see the occupant info, absentee, in-state or out-of-state. You can see different functions like the mortgage rate. You could see the equity that's in the home, so you could set yourself up for listings better. There's so many different features that I really couldn't even go into right now because it would take all day, but yeah. It's really, 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 really very smart prospecting. Not only can you purchase the contact information and call people, but you can also farm as well. And you can, instead of, in the old days, you just pick a neighborhood and you pay a couple X amount, I don't know, let's say a couple $1,000s on a neighborhood. You want to hit 2,000 homes, but you're sending the same shiny postcard to every single house. Well, now you can just pick which ones you want to send a postcard to and customize that message, right? Because the message you would send to someone who's 18 months plus versus 6 months is completely different. So it's just like, I like to think of Remine very similar to my Instagram feed. And what I mean by that is predictive analytics. We've all heard the term, but it's never really been used that much in real estate. Retail is really good at using predictive analytics. So for example, myself, when I was, before I had kids, I used to get ads in my Instagram feed that would say 50% off flights to Vegas, 25% off, bathing suits. And then the moment I became pregnant with my son, I started getting ads that said, stretch mark cream and prenatal vitamins. And then I wanted to cry myself to sleep. and then like within days of having my son, I would start getting ads that would say, this, you should use this formula and here's a coupon for it. So it's the same thing. If you know when someone's going to sell, you can send out a postcard or a mailer that says, hey, we've sold X amount of homes in your neighborhood. And then 12 months down the line, you could change that message to, hey, come to this website, get your free home valuation report. And then 6 months, you just go knock on the door, or you call them directly and say, are you looking to sell? And you change that message, but you're basically in their face all the time. And you have the ability to do that with this data.
Yep. Love it. So then you mentioned something about, having the ability to purchase data in there. So you can see those data points, but when you say purchase that data, is that something where, hey, I can purchase like their name, email, cell, like that kind of data?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything is available for you to view, and it's covered by your MLS dues. Now, when you want to purchase a contact, so we have all of the people that live in the house that are 18 and over, whether they're the owner or the occupant, and we have phone number, voice over IP, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And the cost of purchasing that home's contact card is anywhere between $1 and $3.
Yeah.
And you could purchase that a la carte. You don't have to be on a subscription or anything like that. You could just go in and say, hey, I just need this person's phone number, and it'll cost you $3.
Yeah. And it's so powerful because like you said with Instagram, right? I mean, you purchase those lists for those right people. Not only can you hit them if you want to hit postcards or whatever, but then, right, you can upload that into Facebook or run Instagram ads, run Facebook ads and really get extremely targeted, because I mean, Facebook's got some great demographic tools, but like, for example, you can only pick people that have been in a home for 6 years, right? Well, and like at my price point, they're typically at that point already listed, the average person or it's there's very minimum of them. It's like, I want to hit them at that 4-year mark. Right. So, that's going to be huge. That's awesome. So, then when it comes to, okay, so you're I mean, I'm sure you do a lot of things there, but it sounds like your main focus right now is developing the sales team within that. Is that correct?
Yeah, right now I am the director of talent acquisition because I'm finding talent because we have a lot of seats to fill. Eventually that role will change over to more of a broker relations or enterprise sales role. And yeah, helping managing the sales team with our director of sales, and we are going to be very busy. There's going to be several levels of management within the sales team.
Yep. So then when it comes to finding talent, because man, I mean, this is probably the biggest thing that stifles most entrepreneurs from taking to that next level, because we can only do so much as the leaders of our company. Then it's all about, hey, how do I identify the right talented people that are a fit for my company? Then from there, how do I identify like what their superpower is, if you will, to make sure that I have them in the right seat inside our organization? So like, what are some of the things that you do to go out there and find such amazing people and make sure then that they're focused on the right things inside your company?
Absolutely. So in terms of recruiting for the real estate team is a little bit different than the recruiting I've been doing for Remine. And that is because when you're recruiting commissioned people, it's completely different than providing someone a salary, right? So when I was looking for people to expand our team, I tried to find the most hungriest people that that were looking to grow. So how do I say this correctly? I found that the people that are doing well in real estate, to try and recruit them over to your team is kind of hard, because if they're doing well, they're just going to go do their own thing. That's why we all get into real estate, right? Because we all want to be entrepreneurs. So I would find young, hungry, ambitious people that have a sales background, particularly either in leasing or in something else, similar property management, maybe not per se. And I found that the best people to recruit were the ones that did like 10 or 12 deals over a course of 1 or 2 years. And they still needed more mentorship and they needed more, I guess, leads and accountability. But those are the people that I kind of went after. Someone who was still pretty green. Because if you're expecting them to work for you, you want someone to be green, because they're coming on a team for mentorship, and anyone who's doing well doesn't really need that hand-holding mentorship on a daily basis. So I would go after people who had been licensed for about a year or two and have done about 10 to 12 deals on their own. That was kind of like my target.
Yeah. My experience has been the same. I mean, and I mean, I love brand new agents fresh out of school. And like you said, those agents that are, and they have the contract knowledge, they've done deals, but they just don't know the business aspect. And they're just, it's like, if you just do a few tweaks, they're rocking and rolling. And like you said, I mean, you get some of these more seasoned agents, they don't think that they need it. I mean, they do need the accountability.
Yeah, they do need it, but they don't think they need it.
In their own mind, they're too closed-minded, if you will, to think that they need it to take it to the next level. So with what you're doing though in Remine, because I think, where a lot of teams are going is really hiring out your internal sales team. It's like one thing that, my big push right now is developing the hell out of our ISA team. I want to have like a dozen just insane, crazy talented ISAs feeding 200 agents just appointments, right? So when it comes to that, and what you're doing today, because I think we're going to start seeing a big transition of that in the real estate space too. How does that work with the hiring process, and what do you do in there to, again, make sure that they're the right fit for you?
So I use a DISC personality assessment before I even meet with someone. I send that over to them. Have you heard of it? Tony Robbins disc. It's free. You can just, if you Google Tony Robbins disc, it comes right up. That's an assessment that I send to everybody who applies for any job at any of the companies that we've had. And I first send that over. I send that over, and depending on what the results are, then I move forward. If they are 60% or higher on the I, then they're a good fit for a phone sales role. I also look for someone who has like a 99D or like an 80 or above on their D. And the DI is very important for an ISA role because they're constantly, one, being rejected, two, being hung up on, and three, they need to have that determination to do those like 90 dials per day. So that's first and foremost. If I get a disc back and I see that aligns with what I'm looking for, then I'll bring them in for a face-to-face interview. So our interview process was pretty lengthy. I would do an hour interviewing, asking all sorts of questions. Where do they see themselves in 2 years? How, what does your current workday look like, et cetera, et cetera. And then after that, if I like them, I'd bring them back in again to do an AVA assessment. So an AVA assessment is offered through corporate consulting. It's a behavioral assessment, and basically you go through your whole entire life story with that person. It's a 2-hour interview process on top of the hour I've already spent with them the time before. Then the third step would be I would bring them back in, see how they did in a team environment. I'd invite them to like a team meeting and see basically how they did, and literally right then they're just like, okay, let's role play and see how they worked under pressure. And if they've survived that hiring process, then we would move forward.
Yeah, no, I love it. So then going back to the DISC test, because I'm a big fan. I love the DISC test. Do you, when people have, like, let's say that high D and that high I you talked about for that ISA role, because also the ISA role, there's also very strict systems that they have to follow, that they have to update. So
yeah,
they somewhat need to be somewhat detail oriented, or at least be able to adapt to that. So, are you looking for any of that S&C in there, or
I agree. I think the S&C, like around 30% is good, but I find that like if somebody has a 99D, they can almost do anything, right? Because they have that determination. They might not it might not come naturally for them, but if they have a 99D, then pretty much all the other areas, they can do it if they put their mind to it. And that's just what I've found. But if they have like a DIC, then that's obviously the best person to hire, but it's hard to find that.
Yeah, for sure. And then do you ever and this just could be a limiting belief that I have, and maybe it's just because I analyze my own personal, my own profile, but I'm like, man, if the D is off the charts, like I know for me, if I go to work for somebody, I'm going to go work for them to learn the skill sets. And eventually I'm going to figure out how to become their competition, right? I'm like, what are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? Do you look for anything else when you're there with your interview questions or whatever that you're looking for to make sure that they're a long-term fit for you and a champion of the company, not trying to go out there then. And it's like if I want a vice president, I don't want somebody to become president because they're going to figure out how to assassinate me, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I ask people straight up, I'm like, hey, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Walk me through your ideal perfect workday. Close your eyes. Tell me from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, what are you working on? What are you doing? What challenges are you facing? And if they're describing to me what sounds like their own business, I'll straight up confront it right there and there. I'm like, so do you plan on leaving here and starting your own team? Is that correct? And they'll typically at that point, they're like, yes. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. As long as we have that understanding that you're going to work your butt off for me for the next 2 years, I'll be more than happy to be your mentor when you leave. Like, I have no problem with that because I know how hard it is to run a team. And just because somebody says they want to do it doesn't mean they can or have the time, money, or resources to do it. So I don't feel threatened by that at all.
Yeah. Well, I love that you brought up, you're the first person that I've ever heard say that if you have a 99D, you can really become anything, right? Because I'm a 99D, but I'm a very low I. Like I'm a high D.
You're a low I?
Yeah, which is kind of
no way.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm definitely a natural introvert, right? But I've just had to learn to adapt. When I got into sales, right, I had to join Toastmasters for a year, and I had to figure it out. But yeah, I'm a high D and a high S, low I, low C, and which I know is a very uncommon personality profile. But when people look at that, they're like, oh, dude, you wouldn't be good in sales, whatever.
Yeah.
again,
but your D outweighs everything else. And so you made it work, right?
Yep. Love it. So then, okay, cool. So you're running through that. Then, when it comes to compensation, cause I found with like ISAs or sales teams, like for example, if I have an ISA that is compensated just on the appointment set, and their compensation isn't tied to some portion of the end game goal, right? Then our appointment set to closing ratio might be like 1 out of 20, compared to if it's tied to when we transition to tying the compensation to any end goal, it became like 1 out of 5, right?
Yeah.
Because so when it comes to, what kind of recommendation would you give there with any type of sales team? Doesn't matter if it's real estate or like what you're doing now, because I'm going to guess there's some type of a base salary plus bonuses, and how do you create a winning compensation model that's a win-win for everybody?
Yeah, so that's a tricky question because I feel like it fluctuates for each person. Again, going back to the disc, looking at their values, are they economically driven? What drives them? Are they driven by having authority and power and recognition? And that's another thing that you can go, when you do the AVA assessment review, you go deeper into that and you can really pinpoint, okay, this person is really, really driven by work recognition, or this person's really, really driven by experiences. So I tailor it to what I think is best for that person. For example, some of the agents we had, or some of the ISAs we had, it was purely compensation, like cash bonus based. Other people would be like, okay, I'll send you on a trip, right? Or I'm going to promote you to whatever, head ISA person. So I think you really have to take a step back and really learn who that person is and what drives them, because we all automatically think that all salespeople are driven by money, but that's not always true.
Yeah. Yep. Love it. So then, when it comes to, can you just elaborate a little bit on the AVA? Because I think most people are very familiar with the DISC, but the AVA, it just sounds like, like the DISC is kind of the prequel for the AVA is like the personality, test on steroids, right? Kind of walk us through how you utilize that.
So the AVA, it really goes into the behavioral descriptors of that person. It goes over their leadership style, the best way to coach them, what drives them, what demotivates them, what expected behaviors I should expect. And we address all of those. So if I have any red flags, we address it in the AVA assessment. But the biggest, like the nuts and bolts to the AVA, is really finding out their life story. So what happens at the end of the AVA assessment, I get on the whiteboard and I draw like a line across the whiteboard and I say, these are your highs and these are your lows. And you're going to take this marker and you're going to, from birth until now, you're going to draw out your lifeline, and you're going to explain to me every single low you've had, every failure, and every high, and how that's shaped you into the person you are today. And through that process, not only do I really, really get to know this person and understand their upbringing, their thinking, if their limiting beliefs, if they have any. If you want to find out whether someone has a victim mentality or has any limiting beliefs, this is the best way to find out, right? Because they're telling you their life story, and depending on how their reaction is to that and how they went back, from low to high, okay, this person's not going to play the victim mentality on my team, etc. So I think the AVA is really important when you're hiring somebody, because not only do you get to know who they are, but when 6 months, fast forward 6 months, when you find them in like a low spot or demotivated, you could pull them aside and be like, hey, remember what you told me when you were 7? Let's not do that again. Or you know what I mean? Let's not go back there. So it's a really powerful tool when you're motivating your team too.
Yeah, love it. So then, because you guys are experiencing just massive rapid growth, and you have for, really since inception here, since you guys kicked this thing off, and how important is, so you've got all that together, then how important is overall culture to the success of your organization? Because so many people talk about culture, but I don't think that they take it as serious as they need and understand the importance of it. So what you did there with the DISC, the AVA, all those questions is you're identifying, hey, we have the right person for this position to create success, right? Well, then, right? Then you want to also make sure that they're culture fit, energy fit, all of that. I mean, how important is culture to you in your overall success?
Very, very important. Yeah. Very important. Culture is huge. And I think that going through that whole process, that whole AVA process and the DISC and like just long, lengthy, like literally for us to hire somebody, it takes about a month. Really getting to know them. Our turnover rate is really low because we know who we're dealing with from the get-go. Obviously, you get to know people more when you're working with them, but culture is huge. Like at the moment I identify someone being toxic, it is addressed and it is dealt with. Like there is no let's just pretend that didn't happen, or let's wait until, something bigger happens. It's like the moment something is off about your team, you need to address it. You need to be the leader. It's uncomfortable. It's, nobody wants to do it, but you need to address it. And you need to deal with it and not pretend like it's not happening. The other thing about culture is getting everyone's buy-in, right? And I think that if you put the candidate through such big hoops to work for you, like that whole 1 month process, by the time they come to work for you, they feel like it's an honor, right? They're like, I made it. I made it through a month of like all of this and I'm here now, so I'm not going to screw this up.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, do you feel that, I mean, obviously going through all that process, like you said, hiring the right people for the culture is critical, but then, which is a must. But then from there, like, what are you like ongoing things that you do to keep that culture alive? And I'm gonna, when I ask this, just because I know you're such a systems and processes people, because you get to a point too where like the culture can't be reliant on just you and Leo, because at some point the company gets so big. It's like, when you guys work at Keller Williams, Keller Williams by far has not just the greatest culture in real estate, but one of the greatest cultures in any company. Well, Gary Keller can only be so many places. So he had to figure out a way of how do we take this culture top down and have a systematic, process where it's not reliant on him to keep that alive. So, what are some of the things that you guys are doing for that and to keep that just alive once?
Yeah. Absolutely. So when we do a round of hires, we typically always hire at least 2 people at one time. Reason being is because I'm locked in a conference room for the first 3 days that they're there, and I would prefer to be more people. So it's just more maximum use of my time. So like we're here at Remine, we're typically hiring at 4 or 5 people at a time. And what we do is we'll have them come in on a Wednesday and we literally go through a whole entire backstory of the company, who we are, who's every person who's on our team, what's their role, what's their story, what we expect, where our goals are. We go through videos, like we'll literally look at videos, watch case studies of bad customer service and like over and over and over again. So like to drill into people's heads of how important it is to treat others and treat our clients and treat our leads most importantly. But so that's typically 3 days. So it's a 3 days, like a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're in a classroom, literally just going over case study after case study after case study after case study of bad customer service and learning what the culture is. And we go through our values and everybody knows, our mission, our values and all that. They have it memorized by the time we're done with training. And then from there, we move into a sales training. And that's when we practice our scripts and we learn the demo and our dialogues. We do that over and over and over. So our training process, our onboarding training process typically is about 9 to 10 business days. So that's like pretty much 2 full work weeks just to onboard. So we don't hire people and just throw them in and say, okay, that's it. Like we really, really hone in on that. So I think that's really important. And then it's the ongoing stuff. So like once a month, I organize with the other women in the office. We have like a ladies' night out, and then we'll do like a group happy hour. We're looking into getting everybody on like a softball team. All of those kinds of things help. But I think the most important is like the the setting the tone from day one. So setting the tone from the hiring process to the onboarding process is really like your chance to really get that culture to sink in.
Yep. Love it. One thing that, I've always really respected about you and Leo both is, you're massively successful entrepreneurs. You're both driven. You both are obviously grinding, building, because Rima, you have multiple other companies too, in addition to this company, but you guys also are very intentional about focusing on the marriage and your kids and your health. And I think that's something that so many people struggle with. And kind of before we hit the record button too, I was talking to you about, all entrepreneurs struggle with that. But then I think too, on another level is moms, right? Because they do have that internal war, if you will, that's happening where sometimes a lot of that guilt kicks in while maybe you're at work, they need to be home more. And so, how do you, because I hate the word balance, I don't know if it really exists, but how do you get intentional, be intentional with your time, be intentional with your focus to not neglect one of those massively important things in your life?
Yeah, so I'm pretty opinionated about this subject, so everyone's either going to love or hate what I'm about to say, but here it goes. I think that women have been programmed from the day that they're born to work and think and act and be in a certain way to be perceived as the perfect wife or the perfect mother. And there's actually a term for this. Have you heard this term, Joshua?
I don't think so.
It's called bullshit.
Oh.
Okay. It's complete and utter bullshit because to say that I have to go to the grocery store and put dinner on the table and sweep the floors and fold the laundry makes me a good mother is bullshit. Okay. I think that every mother has the ability to love and raise their children and do it in their own special way and whatever works for them. For me, I go and bust my ass 10 hours a day at the office. To me, that's showing love to my family. That's the way I choose to show love to my family. Being able to provide generational wealth for my grandkids, that to me is what I feel like is showing love. So I think that I've had the ability to meet some of the most powerful, amazing women in real estate across the country. And one thing that all these women had in common was that they understood their worth. They knew their worth and they knew what their hourly rate was, and they did not shy away from that, and they knew how to say no to things that were not worth their time. So what I mean by that is that we as women, we need to understand that now's our time. We need to change our narrative. We don't have to do all the housework to be a good mom. And until we realize that and lift each other up and understand that, we as a society are never going to change. So, know your time. Know your worth. You will never, ever, ever catch my husband mowing the lawn on a Sunday for an hour. Like, that's just not a good use of your time. And I think, Joshua, you told me once that you had a driver take you around because you had to do emails in the back of your car, right? Is that, you still do that?
Yep.
Absolutely, because you know the worth of your time. And we live in this beautiful age of technology where I can literally get on my phone and I can order Whole Foods to my house. I can order toilet paper and shampoo and conditioner to be mailed to my home. I don't even have to get up and go do that. And let's take advantage of that. I have a good friend of mine. She, and I could say this online because she's my best friend, but she's a very high-level executive woman. She's a working mom. And I told her, I'm like, why don't you just get the groceries delivered? And she's like, well, it's only 45 minutes extra of my time. And it's, I save $8 on the delivery. I'm like, are you kidding me? $8? You're going to lose 45 minutes of your time for $8? Do you know what I could do in 45 minutes? I could burn 350 calories in 45 minutes. I could scan LinkedIn and poach another talented person in 45 minutes for my sales team. I could play peekaboo with my kid for 45 minutes. I could literally make another baby with my husband in 45 minutes. Like, know your freaking time and appreciate that. Leverage in for the women out there that can't afford to hire someone to come do the laundry and et cetera and all that yet. Okay, fine. At least start using the technology that's out there. Get on your phone, order Amazon groceries. You can get on care.com. You can find a errand runner for like $10 an hour. Take advantage of that. You want to start making money like the men, then, ladies, we got to start acting like it. So that's my advice. That's the best way to have balance, and be pragmatic about it. Be realistic. Like, for example, I know for myself right now, I have two small kids. I have a 6-month-old and I have a 2.5-year-old at home. Would I love to go to do yoga for an hour every day or 3 times a week or whatever? Yeah, I would love to do that, but it's not practical. So what do I do instead? I have time blocked exactly 25 minutes every single morning at 5:30 a.m. to get on the treadmill that's in my house. Eventually, someday, a year from now or 2 years from now, when my kids are a little bit older, I could go back to doing, going to a traditional gym and spending an hour. But I know right now that's not practical for my time. So be practical with your schedule, calendar everything, and schedule it. And, because I have everything running on a tight schedule, I don't spend any of my time doing stupid things. Like on a Friday night, I'm not folding laundry. I'm out on date night with my husband and we're having a great time. Or, I'm spending time with my kids. If I'm not working, if I'm not doing a dollar productive activity, I am with my family or I'm with my husband. That is it. And you need to get over that mental hump of the guilt, because the mom guilt's always going to be there. Whether you're at home with your kids, you're going to feel guilty about not being at work and not feeling fulfilled. Or if you're at work, you're going to feel that guilt of not being at home. It's always going to be there. You just have to learn how to manage it. It's just like I say the same thing about fear. We all have fear, right? On a constant daily basis, there's always that voice talking in between our two ears, but you need to learn how to manage it and work with it.
Yeah. Love it. So then, because when I started the podcast, I thought the thing I'd get most criticized about is, like me dropping an F-bomb or like, people see my tattoos. Because when I was actually selling real estate, it was a 3-piece suit and I wasn't, not that it wasn't my authentic self, but I wasn't, showing, like I didn't want to go to a client to see certain things that judge that. And by the time I started the podcast, I'm like, screw it, man. I'm at a point in my life where I can just do what I want to do and screw it and go forward with it. And I thought that's what I get criticized most about. What I get criticized and get the most hate comments on is my work ethic. And I'm like, dude, you guys just don't understand time, right? Because I talk about, how for me, a 80-hour work week is a minimum. Like I don't feel complete as just a human being as a man, but I love what I do, right? I don't do it because I have to. I do it because I love it. But I'm like, look, dude, there's 168 hours in a week, right? I sleep 42 of those. I work 80. I'll work out 5. That's 41 hours left over a week, right? If I'm smart with those 41 hours, right? And I delegate all the other stuff like you guys do, all the housework and all of that. So then my time is 100% invested into my family or additional self-development or whatever. You can work twice the hours of anybody else out there and spend way more time and quality time and be intentional with your family. People just have this such a limited mindset with it. Now, when it comes to women with the guilt, I just want to ask this because I don't know if this is something that you went through, but a lot of them that I talk to, because 70% of my team are moms and just most realtors are. So I get this a lot of like they get it. Right, of best use of their time and then investing that time instead of doing the dishes. We can play a game of Monopoly or whatever and create those memories. But a lot of them still then have this fear of criticism, right? Mm-hmm. Of like, oh, well, what are my parents going to think? Like my parents are going to think, whatever, or I mean, how have you, I don't know if it's been an issue, but how have you been able to overcome that if it is, or what suggestions would you have to get people to, start living their own life and stop giving a shit what other people think?
Yeah. Well, for one, level up. Okay. And what I mean by level up is start hanging around other powerful women who get it and that you can relate to. And two, and this is something that I've talked about with women all over the country who also, they delegate out the work that they feel ashamed, right? They feel ashamed. Even they feel ashamed that they have help. And you just gotta tune it out and forget it. Like just do you. If someone is not in the line with your goals, just tune it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I was having this conversation not too long ago with my wife, because my wife stays at home with our 3 kids. But even at that, right? I mean, it's go, 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 right? Because I mean, we have 3 kids that it's karate every night. It's gymnastics. It's, so I mean, she only has like a small window. And even being a stay-at-home mom, it's always, again, I mean, just pressed for time. And we're having that same conversation of like delegation and letting some of these things go. And like you said, with that with that internal guilt, I'm like, dude, what are you going to regret on your deathbed? Are you going to regret that, oh man, I wished I would have swept more floors or whatever? Or are you going to regret not being able to create those more memories with your kids and do those things? And yeah, love it. Just get intentional, man. Love it, love it, love it. So then, what do you do? Because, you guys are at a point where, you've created a lot of success, right? And early on, I mean, you guys are young, you've created a lot of success, but you don't have to do all this stuff. I mean, you could just be like, hey man, we're good. We'll put it on autopilot. The business that we have, we'll just put those on autopilot and just kick back and just, you'd be good if you wanted to do that, right? Like, what good enough becomes a worst enemy of greatness very quickly for a lot of people. What keeps you not settling for good enough when you're in the position to be able to and continue to strive for greatness and not allow yourself to do that?
So I'm not sure what Leo's answer is to this, but for me, it's leading by example for my daughter. I want to show her that she can have it all and that she doesn't have to live into the stereotypes, that she can have a successful career, she could have an empire, she could have a great family life, she could have a great, health-wise. But for me, it's literally, that's my motivation is being that strong lead female role for her. That's what motivates me.
Yeah. Yeah, love it. Yeah, because I mean, you see so many parents that are like, they sacrifice all their dreams and goals and visions to create these opportunities for their kids, and their full why becomes their kids, right? Which I get that, right? But your kids do what you do. They model what you model. They don't do what you say. So if they see you doing that your whole entire life, they're going to follow that same path. But if they see you going out there chasing your dreams, chasing your visions, when they're faced with that of, hey, do I take this safe route? Or do I go out there and take the risk and go after my dreams, visions, and do what will truly make me fulfilled? They see mom and dad doing it. They're absolutely going to go down that path too, compared to the alternative. I mean, with your experience, would you agree?
Absolutely. I 100% agree. It's funny. I always heard that kids copied what you do until now that I have a kid, she's just like me, and she's strong-willed, she's opinionated. It might backfire on me when she's 16, but it's so true. The kids really, they observe everything you say and do, and I see that now, and I know that now, and that's why I work as hard as I do.
Yep. Love it. So knowing what you know now, with all your experience of being an entrepreneur and all the success that you've created, if you could go to your younger version of yourself, like when you first started your kind of working journey, let's just say after college or whatever, if you could go back right now to your younger self, yourself today, and give your younger self 2 pieces of advice, and you would have just really fast forwarded all of this, what would those 2 pieces of advice be?
Oh man. Probably the first one would be, don't be so hard on yourself. Everyone has their own journey, and you'll end up where you need to be when you need to be there. And the second piece of advice would probably be, be very cautious of who has your time. That's probably what I would, because I think time is the most valuable thing, and how you spend it and who you spend it with really, really affects your life.
Yep. Yeah, that whole saying that time is money is such BS, dude. It's like time so much more valuable than money. And yeah, everything's a trade-off. Like, you and I are choosing to trade off an hour of our life to be here. And that means that we have to say, anytime you say yes to something, you got to say no to something else. And being very intentional, couldn't agree more. That's so powerful. So I'm going to ask this question. I've never asked this on the podcast before, but you stumped me when I was talking to your team. I think you're the only person I can ever think of that stumped me with a question. But you asked me if I could go and have a meal with, have lunch with, or dinner with, or whatever, any human being that's either alive today or that existed in the past, who would that be?
Okay. Yes. So this is actually my favorite interview question whenever I'm interviewing a candidate. But I have two people, depending on my mood. If it was to be someone that's alive and present today, it would be Sarah Blakely, the inventor of Spanx, because I think she's amazing. And the first thing I would ask her is, how does she deal with the loneliness? Because the more successful you become, the lonelier it gets sometimes. How does she deal with the loneliness? Two, how does she keep her kids grounded? And the third would probably be, how does she discipline her kids?
Yeah.
She's got 4 of them, so I could use a little bit of advice in that area, but that's probably what I would ask her. And if I was to go back in time, I would speak to Cleopatra. Because I think what she did during that period of time, taking over her father's debt and, getting Egypt out of debt for her, at that period of time that's amazing, and how she dealt with being a woman in charge in that time period.
Yeah, love it, love it, love it. So, okay, so one last quick thing here with Remine. If an agent's listening to this and they're like, "Man, this isn't in my MLS yet, but I need to get it in my MLS." I mean, is there anything that us as agents in the real estate community can do to kind of champion behind you guys and talk to our MLS and work on getting you guys in there? I mean, is there anything that we can do to support and get that, because it is going to be such a game changer system?
Absolutely. You can contact your MLS board and request that Remine be adapted. And if you need help with any of that, feel free to reach out to me.
Yep.
I'm on Instagram as Ariana Pareja, or you could just Google Remine and you'll find our Facebook and website.
Cool. And those that are watching, listen, I don't care where you're at. We'll, in the comments below this, in the show notes, we'll have all Ariana's contact information as well as Remine's website, all the information. So you'll be able to do that very, very quickly. So, all right, with that being said, I started this podcast because I wanted to go out there and have this positive impact on an industry that I think has changed, both of our lives tremendously. And go out there and give them the right information, because there's so much BS information that exists, especially today. Everybody's a freaking guru, right? And I'm like, we're going to interview the doers, no theory, right? People like you that are actually doing and bring the right information to the industry so they can go out there and kick ass. So with that being said, do you have any last words of, advice or inspiration that you'd like to leave our listeners with so they can go out there and create the life they know they want and deserve?
Yeah. Stop talking about it. Just go do it already. That and really, if you want to invest in yourself, I highly suggest joining Landmark, a Landmark forum. They have like a 3-day seminar, or like a Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within, or Date with Destiny. One of those conferences can really jumpstart that mind shift that you need to be able to be a top producer.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so I said one more question, but I got to follow up with one. I know we're going long on time here. Hopefully you're okay, but
no, I'm fine.
So when you go to like a Landmark or Tony Robbins, because there's that saying out there that the teacher appears when the student is ready, right? How would you, or what advice would you give for people to get themselves in a state where they're open-minded, where they're ready to soak that in and allow it to have that impact that they need when they're visiting or doing something like that to go out there and have that change and shift in their mindset that they need?
So for those that are on the fence, if you're not 100% ready for it, maybe take baby steps, maybe find a mentor, find a coach. Definitely. We've always had coaches, always, from the beginnings of our careers, whether that was a health coach or a business coach, but definitely find a mentor, find a coach. And then just do it. Just take the leap and just do it. Just sign up and just do it. And then I promise you, for all of those that are listening, you will not regret it.
Yep. Love it. Powerful stuff. And those watching, listen, I know I end every podcast with this, but information without implementation today is truly just the start of delusion. Information is no longer power. It's taking that information, taking action on that creates power inside your life so you can create the life you know you want and deserve. And Ariana shared so many just amazing pieces of advice with you guys today. Take something that you learned and go out there and take massive, immediate action on it. And Ariana, this has been such an honor. I know you're so busy, and I truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be here.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, thanks again, and we will see you next time.